Hello, nerds of the internet. How are you doing today? Welcome to the another episode of the Nerd Diary. And economics is everything. No matter what you do, if it is not economically viable, then unfortunately it doesn't make any sense. Same is true for our products which we are creating and product management which is used for creating product. If your product is good, processes and practices are good, but if it is not economically viable, then unfortunately doesn't make any sense. And that's why I have a nerd with me, special guest, Rich. I'm not sure I'll be able to pronounce his last name correctly, so I'll stick to the first name. Rich, welcome to the Nerd Diary.
Thank you, Dax. I appreciate it. I wear the badge of nerd with pride. I think it's a good one to have.
Sure. So Rich is one person who is expert in product management. He actually helps companies to build product in an economically viable way. And we are going to ask him lots of questions which can help us to understand how to create our product also in an economically viable way. But before I ask question to Rich, may I please ask you to give a short introduction of yours?
Yeah, happy to. So my name is Rich Vosatsky. I live in Wisconsin in the United States. I've been involved in product development and helping people with product development for over 20 years. But what I really am passionate about is helping people make better decisions through shared communications and working with different perspectives. All right, so leveraging the insights, the specialties that individuals have, the way that they see the problem differently than the people that they work with, and that usually the truth that helps us move ahead towards our goals tends to come together in the combination of all those factors, which I think we'll get into a little bit here today from an economic perspective. But I've been going and working from in software product development for a long period of time. I've done learning product development, and I've been coaching and teaching people the same for at least 13 years now. So it's been a lot of fun for me.
Great. Good to know about you, Rich. So ready for questions? Okay.
I'm ready to go. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start with the very basic thing about product management and economics. The thing is, when we go and talk about product management, we talk about product management. And when we talk about economics, we talk about economics, right? I haven't heard people of late talking product management and economics in the same breath actually. So in your opinion, so product management and economics, they are same, related, different? What's your take?
Definitely different, but related. There, and unfortunately, like you said, we often don't hear people talk about economics when they're thinking about product management. They think somebody else is handling that problem inside their
Right.
business, and it leads to so many bad choices, I think. Economics is a study of behavior and trade-offs. People that are often going and making exchanges between, like, I give you money, you give me a product. What's the demand look like for that? What's are we willing to pay? How long will that last? What incentivizes people to do different kinds of things, right? Like taxes create incentives right, for people, and how we can drive a lot of behavior. And so it's interesting to just understand that, countries and their market demands, different specialty domains, like healthcare, finance, or whatever that comes along. And so economics is very, very broad. In product management, building products, essentially creating solutions for problems that people have and creating opportunities for them to do something in a certain way. And when we solve that problem, when we create an opportunity for somebody, they often want to make an exchange of value with us. They spend money, they subscribe to our podcast and listen, give us our time, or they will, buy a subscription service. They'll pay once for a piece of software, whatever that might be, which is the economic side of it. And so we're always thinking about, usually in product management, either how can we get those kinds of interactions from people so that they consume what we have, or we're thinking about how do we create the kinds of things that people want to consume or that we've been told for them to go and create, but we're not often looking at that whole picture of just the many types of variables and the types of levers that we can pull to optimize those a little bit more. And so I think that lack of understanding that relationship between them can lead to some unfortunate product decisions, or when we happen to get a good one, we don't know why. It was just like, whoops, that was cool, and that's all we get.
Yeah, great one. So, sometime back, I was having a conversation with one of my friend, and he said that it was something interesting. I'm just trying to recall it, the verbatim part of it. He told me that there are two ways product fails. One is product is either not market fit or product is well ahead of its time. Okay, and that surprised me. I was aware that product failed because of multiple reasons, but product is ahead of its time. That was something totally new to me. So when we are working on a product, how can we identify like whether it is ahead of its time or maybe late also, because both will lead to failure.
Uh, think I think a product being ahead of its time is still a miss in market fit, right? It's a
Hmm?
great idea, and that's the case where we're maybe not solving a problem. We've realized that there's an opportunity here, and when we put that opportunity in front of people, they're like, "Whoa, I don't know." I I just had a conversation about this yesterday with somebody where we were talking about smart glasses, right?
Hmm.
And uh, the guy I was talking to was saying he's like, yeah, I bought these smart glasses from my daughter. They're like, cheap Bluetooth headphones with, in sunglasses, but they don't take pictures. They can't really do anything else. They're just speakers, right? And I was like, okay, well that's pretty cool. And we started saying how more people are starting to wear smart glasses from Meta or whoever, right? And it's becoming more acceptable. Go back 13, 14 years to some of the first smart glasses that hit the market from Google, right? Google Glass, and how weird it was for everyone to see those at the time, right? That there was just, you're recording me all the time. No, I'm not actually. And I have Google Glass. I used to love wearing them out into large crowds just to see the reactions and try to teach people what they could do, what was possible, and what it really meant. Like, no, I can't record you all the time. My battery will die in 30 minutes. Uh, and so that was a product perhaps ahead of its time because we're seeing more of that come out now, right? Those types of interactions that either was just a shift in people's perspective or what they want to do with it, or the integration with AI and the ability to learn more about your interactions and your data, or people just want to be more social. I don't know what made that happen where they got more comfortable. Maybe it was just the format of them. And so what Google, both thankfully and, sadly did was they essentially killed the product. They realized it had great industrial application, doctors, factory workers, whatever, being able to identify and pull up information a little bit quicker. But the consumer market was gone within a year. And that meant, no more support and whatnot. And thankfully they saw that. They realized this is a product we shouldn't continue because it's not making economic sense, right? If we keep producing it and no one's buying it, no one wants to use it, and our perception gets lowered, which might also lower people's desire for our other products, this product is going to cost us a lot. And so we shouldn't put it out there. We have to terminate it right now. And so leveraging those signals, I think, help them say, we learned something here. It was a bet that we placed, and it gave us very valuable information about what the market is willing to accept and what they're not willing to accept. That bet was still a good economic decision to learn those things, and it was a better economic decision to say we're ahead of our time and we don't have a market, so we should stop and go invest our money somewhere else.
Right. So it's interesting because in the last podcast, I asked similar question to my guest, and we were talking about when to pivot. when to realize that things are not market fit, and when to pivot. She pointed out that most of the time it's also the founder's ego problem, or maybe product people ego problem. I mean, she was very blunt in that, saying that we don't read the science. So I think what you are saying is on the same lines, that read the science, understand whatever is coming, and pivot if required.
Absolutely. It's as a product manager, your ego will get bruised a lot. And that's something you're going to have to, build up some resilience to. I'm not going to say it doesn't hurt, but
Mhm.
it's something that you can learn from and say, okay, that didn't work. I really thought it would. The signs are there. No amount of further investment is going to make that reality. You have an exchange. You cannot control these people. You have to figure out, what do they actually want here, and maybe what they want is nothing like what you have. Stop. Go do something else. Don't keep throwing money at the problem. And with a lot of product managers, because they're disconnected, I think, from one of those variables. Either they don't know the benefit of what they're creating, so all they can do is manage the queue of work that's coming through, or because all they know is like, um, the benefit of what they're doing, right? And they don't understand the cost that it gets there. They're like, well, that didn't work. Well, we can just keep doing more things, and not realizing just how much they're wasting along the way and how bad of an economic choice that is.
Agreed. So, since we are talking about product managers, I think there is a term called backlog, which is universal in pretty much all the companies across the world, right? And I'm going to ask you a question about what you have said earlier. And many people may not like it, but you said that most product managers are glorified backlog jockeys,
I
right?
did tell you that once. Yes.
Yes. So, trying to understand a bit more why you said that. And even if that's the case, isn't most of the organization want them to be so?
Yeah. Unfortunately, so right. They put their product managers in this kind of position, and they're trying to optimize around the capacity of their people and just getting work in and done and whatever. Like, keep people busy. So let's make sure we manage this backlog. Some product managers actually own their backlog, and I think that's great. They make better choices when they understand the cost that goes into something, the cost of delay, that a benefit that they're not realizing by putting it further down the product backlog, the investment that they're making every iteration of their product to say, in this week, it's going to cost us $10,000. What do I want to get for that, right? But if they don't have that information, they are doing what their organization said. We're going to give you this big list of stuff. We're going to tell you what needs to get done. You need to get it done as quick as possible. Or we're going to give you this big list of stuff. You have to listen to the person with the highest ego, or they're going to make your work life horrible. And that's what they're managing for. They're managing for ego. They're managing just for like keeping people busy, which is absolutely the wrong thing to do. We want people to be engaged and productive, but not overly busy, because that lengthens the time that it takes for us to run any other experiment. Right. So they manage all this work, and they don't see the consequences down the line. They don't understand how much longer that might take other things to happen and pile up, and thus the other people with egos yelling more, why isn't my thing moving along? They're because they don't own it. They aren't understanding the benefits that are coming out there. So they're just trying to either get people off their back or keep their people busy, or taking on like little projects to get done just to fill that capacity, rather than saying like, what's the most risky thing for us to do? What's the biggest thing that we can learn from? What's the thing that gives us the highest opportunity right now, that if we delay it, we'll lose some of that opportunity going forward? And so if they're disconnected from those metrics, all they're doing is managing a big queue of work, but not even in an effective way.
Right. I'll second your point, because it was my experience also. Most of the time, there was nothing known as backlog management for most of the product owners and product managers. Things are being, coming down from top. It's just a set of task list masked as a backlog. So you'll have to do it irrespective of the refinement outcomes, irrespective of some bottlenecks or something. You have to do it, and you ended up doing it, which again led to debt of different sorts. So yep. So how can in today's organizations, what will you suggest? What is the one thing they should do to improve this thing? Because at the end of the day, they are worried about cost, I believe, right? No matter how much they are earning. And they also realize that there is a cost associated with having people just to get the backlog out without getting into any sort of meaningful discussion or giving the ownership of some part of the system to some product managers or product owners. What is the one or two things they should do to minimize this kind of
I
situations?
think two really come to mind. One, they should understand the benefit that they're trying to get, and like whether that's increased learning around whether they should continue invest in something, or some actual financial benefit that could be in terms of you know 20% more people subscribe to our product offerings and services than what we have right now in 3 months time. Okay, well, are one of these that can get us 3% of the way there? Does one get us 10% of the way there? Do we understand, and how can we learn that as fast as possible? Because that not only has there's not only a learning benefit, but there's also a potential revenue benefit, which helps pay for the cost of doing that work. So just having some understanding of how will you know, one, what is the thing that you're after, and what does it start to look like from a cost perspective? What do we start to see from that delay, to know that we will not get that learning, which could impact other things we're working on. We're building on invalidated assumptions, or it could lead to us going and not realizing a benefit because we produced too late. So understanding that and relating that back to the queue and the cost there is huge. I think the other key thing that people need to do is start understanding that it's rare that people are not busy. They are overly productive, getting maybe slammed with more work than they can, which slows things down. Even with AI, which can produce stuff really quick, we don't know if we're getting the right things done. We're going slow on other times. We're overloading the capacity. So if we have other ideas, other things we want to test, other things that could potentially earn us an economic benefit, or whether that's more revenue or decrease cost somewhere, we're not able to execute on that because we're just trying to keep people busy rather than trying to make smart choices based off of the things that we understand about what is this benefit and what is the cost of delay of waiting for it, so we can better manage that queue.
Okay. So first and foremost, they should think about managing the queues in a better way.
Yeah,
That will give you immediate benefit, and then you can think more about how to optimize the work. Yeah, that's a good point. So, Rich, you emphasize more on value creation most of the time. When we have some conversation, you always talk about value. So some people might be having this kind of confusion or query like, is value different from my backlog, or isn't it the case that all the items in my backlog are actually contributing to the value? Explain this to us.
sure. Everything in your backlog has a chance to create value, but we don't know.
Hmm.
The idea, right? I think that's the other piece, is that a backlog is just a collection of ideas. They're not necessarily things we have to do, right? It's not a big requirements list. Even if it's like meeting a regulation, right? It's like, well, what if we didn't? What's the benefit, cost and benefit of that? And so understanding that everything that's in there has a potential benefit. It could earn us more revenue. It could get more people to buy our products. It could get more people engaged within our community. Let's say you're operating a nonprofit. You're trying to get more people to help out on your mission here. And so all of those things might do what you think that they do, but we don't know. Right? Like we have an objective in mind. Maybe we're, like I said, we're trying to get 20% more people than we had last year to come out to community days and work on our local gardens. Great. Well, what could make that happen? All of those things about what could make that happen are in your backlog. And yet, when we create them, they don't necessarily do that right away, right? We might have to wait for some time for that to actually occur. It might happen immediately. We might get an immediate spike. Oh, well, we got 5% more people engaged. That's great. We seem to be trending in the right direction. If it flattens out, though, and it's only 6-7% more, well, maybe we didn't do enough. Maybe we have to go do something else. We didn't get the value that we expected. We got something slightly different. Maybe it spikes up way higher than we were anticipating. Now we get 50% more people involved in our community garden. And if we do that, awesome. But can we handle that? Are we communicating with them? Right? What do we need to do next to sustain this kind of growth that we have here, or to make sure that it's serviced appropriately? And so I think that all of the ideas that you have in your product backlog could create that value, but until we actually put it in a consumer's hands, an actual customer of your business, a customer of your team, maybe that's an internal customer that you have, like the employees that benefit from decisions HR makes, let's say, that until you go out and put that in their hands and measure their reactions and measure their engagement, we don't know if it created value. So we have to try to learn that as fast as we can, focusing on the things that we think could give us the highest value, that maybe also have the biggest risk, right? Of either, if we don't do it, we'll miss an opportunity, or if we don't do it, we won't learn if there's that opportunity, and go straight out those so that we can make that trade-off as fast as possible.
Okay. One point, it's easy to talk about value which is tangible. What about intangible value? Let me give you an example. I was on a holiday last week. I went to, a resort which is there in the middle of a jungle. And, I stayed there for a couple of days. Everything was fine. Everything was as expected. But when they returned my car, they actually cleaned the car from inside and outside. You know. So and this was something I wasn't expecting. I didn't see any review where they said that they will clean the car. And of course, when you go to a jungle, your car will be all dirty. And this is one small gesture made my wife so happy that she gave 5 star for everything without even looking at any of the questions. So I'll consider this kind of intangible things. How to as a product owner or a product person who is looking for generating intangible value, because I believe that intangible value also contributes heavily to the your revenue. Like like in this particular case, one small gesture and we are flat that you clean the car without asking and without telling. So how to talk about these intangible values, and how to even judge that whether this intangible value is a value first of all.
Even those have a tangible value. It's so, in my opinion, it's probably so disconnected from down the line that you might not know that actually cleaning your car created 4 new reservations for them over the next year.
Yes.
And right, because that's actual tangible value. There's more reservations, more money and whatnot, because either you posted that review very quickly and willingly at 5 stars and commented on it. And if we see a lot of people commenting on, like, wow, and the car was spotless and it was great and I didn't even have to worry about that, people who want that will go and buy a service there. And it makes me wonder as well, you loved this thing that somebody did this for you, you didn't expect it. When you go back, will you be more likely to hire a car from the same place again?
Okay.
right? So if you are, then they've created more value. They've created a longer lifetime earning from you because of that service. So it costs them money to do it, but now they are going to capture more revenue from you in the future on a very long tail because of that service offering. And if that wasn't a factor, if you said, well, I mean, it was nice, but I mean, I don't care. It's not my car. I rented it. It goes back. They have to do something with it anyway. Then, and it didn't change what happened for you. Maybe that doesn't affect your ability. And so noticing that, unfortunately, perhaps with some slow learning on a case or something like that, of if we did this thing and it didn't create that kind of additional benefit of either you coming back and hiring the car again, or more people coming in to hire a car because they said, oh, I like the fact that you offer this service, there's no benefit in continuing that product or that service offering. They should maybe take it away. It doesn't mean it was bad to do it, but you need to get that learning back in of like what signals are feeding you to say like this is good, and that you've created happiness for the customer, and that happiness has turned into increased marketability for them, which should hopefully also turn into increased revenue for the business by more people referencing the reviews and more people going and wanting that service.
Right. I really liked the thing which you said, like, even if it is intangible, at some part of the chain, it should create some tangible value. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that there's always an exchange made somewhere, right? And that could be money, right? It's a good proxy for other types of value, whether that's customer happiness, customer engagement there, other products that you're exchanging. You might, instead of bartering with people, you can have money there, right? And so those intangible things create the benefit that make us say, I want to do this. And so for a lot of other businesses, it's reducing the time that people spend working on a task, right? Or that their customers have to spend going through something. It's being able to create some kind of capability that makes them more satisfied with the product and want to use it more. The opposite could happen too. They might think all these things come in here that add service and benefit to a product and don't. Like for example, I use Zoom for a lot of meetings, but man, there's just so many features in there I don't want that I could probably get somewhere else. There's and I used to use Crisp AI for trying to deal with noise around me and such when I was on calls. And it went from a really simple, good solution that was efficient in filtering out voice to a bit more of a resource hog that was capturing every bit of conversation or audio that I had when my mic was on, which is most of the time, and then storing that in the cloud. So hallway conversations when I'm walking around here are getting thrown out there and turned into meeting notes, which are getting emailed to me. I'm like, this is not what I want from this tool. And everyone's trying to build it in. So that actually caused them to lose my business. I said, they wanted to charge more for the increased value that I was getting here. And I said, that's not value to me. And it took that my money away.
So, Rich, both of us, and many other people in the product management area, they talk about outcomes, measuring the outcomes, not the
Mm.
outputs, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of obvious, but there is one problem with it. To measure the outcomes, you will have to wait for the product to be completed, deployed, delivered, and used. To some extent, also understanding the value of it. There is there any way, like, while you are doing it, like we talk about in agile, like iterative and incremental software development, but most of the time the outcome, like, whether you are profitable or not, whether customers really liked your product or not, like for example the Zoom, when it comes in, I really liked it. And if you give me, Microsoft Team and Zooms, I'll go to Zoom at any day, because of all the complex thing, as you said, that is there in those tools. So it will be evaluated only after product is kind of built and used. So should we wait till then, or how we can judge the outcomes like bit early? That's I know it's a difficult question, but I want you to answer.
Yeah, I think I think that sometimes you have to wait. Patience is a rare commodity that we should all try to find more of. And it doesn't mean that we just sit on our heels and delay deployment because, for example, if even if something took 3 months to find out if this actually created the total benefit that we expected for it, that doesn't mean it's all going to be delivered at one time. So I think that's a key thing, right? There's probably a curve that comes along to it that we're going to start to see some benefit. People are going to start consuming it. It might spike up suddenly because people are talking about it online. We'll see a benefit there, and then it might peak, and then we might see it drop off. The benefits, the expected benefit there gets less, or people just say, this is a offering I expect to see here now. So it's not any more valuable than anyone else because now it's also getting copied by 6 other tools. And so sometimes you need to look at the fact that it's not a single. You're not going for one target number, right? Of we're going to produce $100,000 revenue with this feature. Okay, you may, but you might produce $130,000 revenue, and it might take time, right? Maybe you get that first 50,000 in 2 weeks after deployment, but to hit 130 takes closer to 8 weeks, right? And so knowing and seeing that trend over time, I think is really important. We also could go and understand what are some potential quick metrics that we can do. So if we have some bigger outcomes that we're looking for that could say about how people recommend our services a little bit more frequently. So we don't know if a new feature is necessarily going to do that, but we might start to release a feature, see if people are using it, right? So has their behavior changed on how they're using that feature? Does that get them to engage with other parts of our product? Do we then also see more comments and more reviews getting posted about that? And thus as well, our signups are coming up, right? So it's not a single variable problem. There are many things that we can measure from a customer behavior aspect, which relate to the bigger impact that we're trying to create from an outcome and the bigger overall, and maybe say revenue impact or something that we're trying to get for our business. So
Right.
patience is the key thing, and continual monitoring of the multivariate problem that we're really working and facing here.
Yeah. So if I can summarize your point, you are saying that product is multidimensional always, right? So whatever dimension you are working on, um, you just keep on monitoring how people are reacting to that, right? For example, off late I am seeing lots of updates coming for lots of softwares which I'm not liking. Many of them are cosmetic, and I really dislike that. Even you know Macs are getting updates every 2 or 3 days. Your watch has to be up to date, need to be updated with new software, and I don't like it, right? What are the things it's changing, right? So maybe I as a customer, I may not be liking it. There are few customers which may be liking it, but there is no feedback mechanism as such for these things. Like there is no feedback from Apple or any other company saying that, okay, I'm updating your operating system, what's your opinion about it? Did you felt any changes apart from the wallpaper that gets changed with every update? No, nobody is asking for any feedback. So I believe what you are saying, that it will be good to understand the customer behavior and perspective from everything you are doing, and it will actually help you to understand in which direction your product is going on. Did I
Yeah,
interpret it correctly or something
yeah,
else?
and to follow up with something you just said, I think is really important that you you're getting these new cosmetic UI updates, which perhaps in a buyer's mind create the impression that something's fresh. But also sometimes in a buyer's mind, it creates the impression of like, now where do I go to find the thing that I did before? You moved
Right.
it, you changed the interaction, None of the functionality has changed. It's just now it's harder for me to execute on that. And so we might see somewhere else, some negative reaction because we didn't build in that mechanism. But if there's no other benefit, right? If we're just changing the UI just to look new and fresh, and no one's asking for that, and customer behavior doesn't change whether it was new or not, we don't. Why did we do that work? Right? There was no real economic benefit here. So some people might be doing it just because of an impression that they think that this is a good idea to do because, like, look, everyone's updating their UI and they're trying to make it, fancier or use this kind of style. Who's measuring that if we didn't update our UI, would it actually go and cost us customers? Right? Do we see a decline there? If we make changes to some parts of it or put out maybe another product that has an updated, and refreshed UI that we want to consider moving towards, and people start to like it, or maybe a part of our product, do we use that as the signal to update the rest? So there's obviously that benefit of it's driving customer behavior, and it's driving some perhaps economic benefit of continued, use and purchase of our products that show that it's worth that kind of investment. But to do it over and over again feels highly wasteful to me.
Yeah, that's a great example, Rich. And before I go to next question, I am sure, based on my experience with last couple of podcasts, some people will definitely give some comment asking me your contact information. So, what's the best way to contact if people want to contact you?
Yeah. Easiest way for people to find and contact me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. So I'm just LinkedIn, Rich Vosatsky. You're only going to find two of them out there. The other one's my father, and he's a lawyer. So if you're, finding the lawyer, you found the wrong guy. But I'm just linkedin.com/in/Rich Vosatsky. And my website, jointinsights.com, I can make sure that you've got that info to post in the,
Sure, I'll
yeah,
post it in the
afterwards.
description of this particular video.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, but yeah, Join Insights, I got a little contact form at the bottom, and I'm rich at joininsights.com. So feel free to shoot me a message if I can help you out in any way.
good. So, going to the next question, Rich, and I think this is something where, uh, I mean, I'm not sure whether it will be controversial or beneficial, but in a product company, there are waste in every process, everything we do, right? Some part of it is inevitable, right? Do you think there are few things which companies, especially product companies, should stop doing because it's a pure waste of effort, time, energy, and most importantly, money?
Uh, yeah, probably a lot of things. I think they should stop managing timelines and people's capacity. I think they should measure people's capacity, but not necessarily manage it, right? Trying to keep people busy because there's work out there that can be done, and if the queue of work is always greater than the capacity we have to exhaust that queue, we're fine, right? Where people are busy enough, and now we're losing opportunity to manage any variation to that queue, more accurately. Like if there's a new idea, where does it go? When does it wait? How do we reprioritize that? How do people consume that information within our team? So just that management of trying to keep people busy is kind of hard. And then timelines are also kind of, in my mind, useless because you say, oh, we need to know, how do we get this thing done in the next year? There's a lot you can learn in a year, and we're missing that opportunity to learn. There's a lot that we can create and potentially deploy. We don't have to deploy everything that we create. There's not always a benefit in doing that. Sometimes the cost is too high, especially on physical goods, maybe more than digital goods. And so in doing something like that, trying to understand, all right, well, you have this timeline. You want to try to figure out, how do we break it up to make sure it's as understood as possible and kind of work down and put all that in your backlog. And what we've actually done is increase the amount of variability in that timeline because we have lots of different ideas. We don't know, we've never done any of that work before. We don't know how long it's going to take. So the best thing to do is just find the thing that creates the biggest potential impact and go work on it, right? Rather than, so manage its place in the queue, manage the size of that queue, go learn from that and keep people learning and potentially creating some benefit for a customer to create a benefit for our business. So I think that's wasteful, right? Essentially not making a good economic understanding and choice within your work here. That's the biggest one that I've seen.
Okay, great point, I'll say. Okay, so we'll change here to move into economics, pure
Yeah.
economics.
Okay.
So, you know, every product development is an investment first, right? It's just like movie making, right? You invest, create something, and then you will have to wait for the returns to come. So, what are the economic criteria you see on different types of companies? For example, there are some startups and there are some mid-sized companies and as well as MNCs. You know, even if you have surplus budget, you still have limit to something, right? So startups are very tight on that. Mid-sized companies are, kind of, in the middle, and even budget is fixed for many new initiatives and products for R&Ds in big organizations. So from the economic point of view, do you see or do you propose a economic limit on each of the companies, or we should see something totally different?
Ooh, I love that. I think we're looking for the same information. It's just the amount of uh, the amount of money that a large company could invest in doing the wrong thing is
Mhm.
probably greater, and the amount of experiments or various avenues that they can run on to learn on is higher, right? Because you have a lot of people working for you. You have a lot that you can invest. You can you can run multiple experiments in parallel, and maybe 1 out of 10 pays off. The other 9 were just a total cost sink, but that one paid for the next 20, right? Because it's just there's often a hockey stick of benefits that come out of projects that there's so many that don't do really well, and then that one that just skyrockets. So we can't expect all of our bets to pay off. A startup probably doesn't have as much funding, so they still need to experiment to learn what are the things that are going to create the biggest economic benefit for my business, because they're not going to survive for very long if they don't, right? So they still need to put in that investment, run those experiments, and try to learn. Their learning, though, probably has to happen much quicker, right, than what a large organization could tolerate. But they're still going after the same thing. Does this help? Is there an actual benefit here? It's just for the startup, they might lose, let's say, 70,000 running a couple of different experiments to get a $500,000 benefit. For a large company, they might lose 40 million to try to go after a $200 million benefit. And it's, the numbers are just huge, right? That's what's out there. Um, I look at that and think, well, did we invest $40 million into learning, or did we invest $40 million into building something just because somebody told us to? Because we're so large, we didn't think about what is the actual economic benefit and how are we tying that to the choices that we're making. Whereas a startup is going to feel that pain all the time because they're much closer to the economics of it. If we do this, we can't hire somebody. We might not stay in business for another 4 months. We might have to let somebody go to keep going. And we see that for bigger businesses too. They absorb it in a totally different way.
A great point. Like experimentation, it's all about, you'll have to do multiple experimentation. It's highly unlikely that your first experiment will hit the bullseye for any size company.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't know. We have to go learn.
Right. So, does the purpose of the company makes any difference to their economic viewpoint? For example, like some companies are acting like NGOs. Some of them are non-profit companies. Some of them are just created to help people, and they are banking on donations. So, what is the economic viewpoint for these kind of purposes, which is not directly there to I mean compete in the market and take the bigger pie of the spending?
Yeah. I think that's a really important distinction. It's the benefit that they're looking for. When we put the very generic term value out there, the value that they're creating for somebody and the value that kind of comes back in could be totally different. All right, what they're organized around. So a for-profit company is pretty simple, right? They're trying to make sure they convert customers. They're trying to get revenue. They're trying to increase, value for shareholders and dividends and those kinds of things. So it's often very direct and sometimes impersonal, not always in a bad way, right? I think going back to your intangibles before, if we don't consider the human side of our customers and the intangibles that they get, we might not understand their willingness to continue to give us an actual financial benefit. But for them, it's probably a very dry kind of thing to look at and very, easy to get that type of data. For a nonprofit, and I had a friend who told me, he says, even nonprofits have to get revenue, right? They have to earn money. They just aren't doing it for profit. They're doing it to continue to provide on their mission. So, there's a local nonprofit here that I'm trying to work more with that runs a coding camp to bring people from non-traditional backgrounds into technology, get them connected to local organizations that need a partner to develop some kind of solution for them. They learn about agile and iterative development and outcomes along the way. They actually, build something for this group and hopefully connect with people to get careers. I think it's really neat. And this organization needs money to survive, right? But they don't get it from people buying their services. They get it from local companies, individuals, et cetera, deciding to make a donation, invest in that mission that we're trying to lift people up and give them opportunities that they didn't have otherwise, and build connection. So if they can't capitalize on that idea that this is valuable and useful to everyone around us, it's hard for them to get the money. And if they don't see the benefit for these people coming out of it, that's what they're looking for. They're trying to measure how often are these people landing jobs? How long does it take for them to land a job? What do they do in their careers? And again, a long tail that comes with that, but they can constantly bring that back to whoever will give them money to continue that mission. And governments are similar too. That I have a government client. They said, we're not earning revenue. We obviously, and it's not like we have a same kind of cost structure. I'm like, well, you're spending my tax money, so let's make sure we get something useful for it. And they're like, yes, we absolutely want to do that. But what they're doing is, they're trying to provide data to other agencies. There's maybe sometimes what they're building is being consumed by 3 or 4 people. Maybe it's being consumed by millions, right? And so in that case, they don't see, the economic benefit in terms of like, they're not trying to say that this is creating, an uplifting GDP for the government. That's not what their department does. But they want to make sure that they can, keep information secure. They can get people more access to, to parks, whatever that might be. So much, some of those what feel like intangibles, right? It's not a revenue thing, but they want to make sure they invest their money wisely. So what they look for in that, is it worth it to do A or B? I think that equation changes, but there's still something that they're going after from a value-based perspective that they can use to understand, what might they be missing, right? And if they delay that opportunity or if they choose to do something else, and how could they learn that as fast as possible?
Right. Okay. Now, coming to one of the most interesting question that is there in today's world, how does this AI impacts the economics of modern product development?
Immensely. uh, what I think is interesting when it comes to AI from a product development perspective is that um, the cost of our choices is probably getting thrown in our face more than what we understood before, which is, I think, great. Um, you know, I would tell product managers that I've worked with in the past that even if you don't know, you know, everyone's exact salary, right? You should have some understanding of like what does your team cost to run?
Mhm.
Is it $20,000 a week? Is it $50,000 a week? Like what's happening there? And that changes over time as people's salaries change, or you know, you have to rent office space. You have servers that you're running. Now you have tokens and sessions and things with AI. And so that cost is much more, you know, prevalent in front of us. And we can see that. We also get outputs quicker, I think. Sometimes we get outputs quicker. They might not be the right output. We have to iterate more, or we don't always understand what's the maintenance cost of that down the line. So it gives us the opportunity to perhaps capture some value and capture some learning really, really quickly. And I think that that is great for organizations with a much higher understanding of what the cost is there. So AI AI is certainly another factor that people play towards, that they're just, I think it's creating more that understanding that we need this data to understand, are we making a good choice? Like, did we create something with AI that was helpful for someone? Was it helpful for just the person who created it or the whoever asked the question? Is this creating a long-term benefit from our organization? That we're still learning. And so that will continuously play out, as well as the cost of AI changes, right? From tokens getting more expensive, sessions getting more expensive, people running AI locally at their workstation or within their organization, trying to, and the cost of hardware that it goes along with that. So we're starting to see those decisions come in a lot more, which I'm thankful for. It's not just use AI because AI, right? It's use AI, and AI has a cost. What are we going to get for that? Let's start thinking about that too.
Right. Um, I have a small, maybe slightly different take on AI. Um, I was trying to, take the latest model, the costliest model, and I was trying to build my own portfolio website, simple website. What AI gave me was the picture perfect website, but um, I was about to tell the AI that, bro, I'm not that perfect. I don't want these perfect things. Okay, it, and somehow it was not even looking human, right? It was like a portfolio of a super intelligent species, right? So yeah, you're doing things in a perfect way, but sometimes I don't want that kind of perfection in everything. Maybe being imperfect in something is the quality I'm trying to sell, right?
Yeah.
So um, it, it, so I was actually struggle for for some time before I decided to go ahead, and I kept the look and feel same, but I ended up changing pretty much 60-70% of the text that was generated by AI, because it was, even after explaining it clearly, it was not reflecting me as me. It was
Mhm.
always trying to exaggerate things which, some of which even I wasn't even aware of. So the not everybody needs that kind of perfection, or sometimes when you create a product, people need a stepping stone, right? I don't think creating that stepping stone is easier, but if you are near to the top, you can create one of the most awesome looking product with AI. So I had very bad experience with that. I was trying it, and also, like, it's not that I'm not sure how people are saying that vibe code this that. Like, if I had to set up a contact form, for example, in my website, I have to put it in some places cPanel, right? I have to set up the database. I have to set up the connection, and it's not that AI could do it. It was just instructing me to do it. How, go ahead, do this, do that, and that's where I still feel that the more people experience with real-time product-related development with AI, the more closure they will get to the capabilities of AI. I'm not doubting the capabilities, but what I felt is that I wanted to put that website, immediately live. I couldn't do that, right? But if I just create this for demo, I get it. 100% of the people will be mesmerized just by looking at it.
Yeah, they probably get that, like you said, that like, ooh, like this is nice. And yet, did it drive more engagement to your site? Did it pull people away? Because like, oh, another AI website, you
Yeah,
know,
it pulled people. At
what?
least the look and feel. I'm sorry. The look and feel looks like it pulled people away, because that's one of the things which you get directly from Lovable and this Opus and the Sonnet, that some default look and feel comes, like greenish, blackish, blue, red kind of color scheme that comes in. That's not my natural choice. Like, if people know me for some time, they will think that how on earth this person selected this color.
Yeah. Uh, I was at a baseball game with a friend on Friday night, and I was talking with her about AI and product development, product management. She is a designer by trade. She's become a product manager recently. She still, floats in both, parts of that within her company. And she was saying that, there's a mandate to use AI. Everyone has to go and use it. There's one whole project that they're trying to go and build. And while what they're building is working, people aren't liking it. They're like, yeah, the design's really bad and whatever. And she's like, well, you said that we weren't allowed to have our designers involved. Like they couldn't push a pixel, they couldn't do any of their work, they couldn't interview people and bring those findings into the design that would be fed to AI. They just want to see, could AI make something? And of course it can. It's just it made the wrong thing.
Right.
And that understanding of these people who knew how to measure customers' interactions were getting pulled out of the mix. And that was a big loss. The ability to create a consistent design that they were innately aware of from their time, that the AI was not trained on, was missed, right? Which you could perhaps create a style guide and tell AI that it has to follow that, and that would be great. But they miss this huge opportunity to create something more purposeful from the beginning, because we'll just shove this problem at AI and see what it can do. And I think that might raise costs in product development for a while. We'll learn quicker, but the cost to get that learning, we're going to invest a lot to get that information, which may be worth it. And we're turning a lot of people, no matter what their role was before, a designer, a coder, a business analyst, a project manager, an executive, into managers of products, right? Because they have to, and consumers, they have to understand, like, this is what you've been doing to teams. You've been feeding them lots of ideas without context and telling them to go and build something, and they build it and they come back looking for that learning and like, this isn't what I wanted. And we get frustrated dealing with AI on that, like, no, this is maybe not what I wanted. It's so cool you did this, but no, it's not that AI did anything wrong. It just did what it was supposed to do with what you gave it. People do the same thing. So trying to understand, communicate that learning and build up that knowledge that we've had in organizations for years, right? And that gets tacitly passed around at the water cooler and in other conversations and design calls and whatnot. Not all of that's getting fed into the AI. And even if we had it, who knows, right? It might create exactly what we're looking for. It might not. We need to make sure we understand, how can we benefit from that, learn as quick as possible from what we put out there, and know what we're trying to learn from it before we release it. Because if we can create things as fast as possible, the tendency to create more is high, which increases our cost of delivery because we're creating all this stuff. and we're putting it out there, and it might impact our ability to learn from it, because the consumption, the queue that we're creating for our consumers of, grab this stuff, tell us what you think, grab this stuff, tell us what you think, is so large. They're like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go somewhere else, or I'll tell you about this one thing, and we don't even hear about the other 10 experiments that we want. And so that's a big understanding that we have to get through too, that just because we can create it doesn't always mean we should. And sometimes taking that time to learn about our market is more important than pushing more things at.
Right. So, that's one thing these product people should know and implement, because, I tested AI with by providing few templates, website templates, and asking which template is good for profile like me, right? And I'm sure if I show those templates to you, you will just throw away 90% of them, saying that none of these gonna do any justice to the profile, right? But what AI does is that for everything, it's a great template. It's a great template. It's an amazing template. It's a good template. So basically, the agreeable nature of AI is a serious risk, and that's something my previous guest also talked about. The biggest risk with AI is that it agrees to you, saying that this
Yeah.
is good. If you say I have this idea, it will definitely gonna say that's a great idea, and if I tell you, you will say that's a stupid idea.
Actually, why do you think the AI does that?
Hmm, I mean, it's the base algorithm which people are saying is that similar to that of Instagram and others. They want to keep you engaged. If they say that's not a good idea, then your interaction with AI might reduce. Why? Why it's like acting as a therapist. They are not acting as a therapist. They like they are agreeing to whatever you say. Then you tend to say more and more. Right?
And you
So
stick around, right? I've dealt with that as a consultant for a long time. I could tell my clients exactly what they want to hear, and they'll
mm,
keep paying me, and that's great. I like getting paid, until suddenly they're not getting a benefit, and they maybe fire me, and I have to go find somebody else. And meanwhile, nothing's changed,
right.
and I personally can't stand that, right? So sometimes I tell people what they should know, and need to hear, and it's not always pretty. I didn't tell them this was a great idea. I tell them, I don't understand how this is a great idea. Can you tell me? And they don't know, and they think that that's actually a bad, kind of thing. And I'm like, all I'm trying to do is help them think through the problem a little more. And if they didn't want to think ever, if they just wanted to be told that, yes, I, have that yes man there to make you look good in the mirror, right? Then I didn't, go and achieve that for them, and they'll go and hire somebody else who will. And again, nothing's changed. They spent a lot of money and no economic benefit for it. So same thing happens with AI. It's a product. It's a tool. It wants you to keep consuming it. It's the people who've made these models, build them in such a way such that it can help. It wants to help you solve the problem, so you come back to it more. And so it's, of course, it wants to make you feel good about it. And it's a very interesting way to play to one's ego about product development and not to the actual economics of it.
Agreed. Totally agree. I didn't realize we have well past our time. It's more than 1 hour 5 minutes. So I think we'll stop now. Maybe it's interesting conversation. We'll catch again sometime later. Rich,
Would love to, Dax. Thanks again for the invite today.
thank you so much for spending Sunday morning here, Rich. And thanks for all the insights you had given. And thank you again for accepting the invite and coming to the Nerd Diary. Okay.
Happy to.
See you then. Bye.
Bye.